Good afternoon, peace and blessings, Aquaba, for wherever you guys are in the world. Thank you for tuning in today. My name is Zaire Sabb. I am a chemist, an herbalist, a midwife, and I'm here today to talk to you about the womb wisdom herbal care of Yoni steaming. I want to give a shout out and a great thank you to New Earth Health Foods Ghana for sponsoring this event. So sit back, have a cup of tea, and let's get started on our journey. Again, my name is Zaire Sabb. I'm a mother, I'm an herbalist, I'm an urban farmer, as well as a child of Ifa. I was trained under Dr. Nadeo Opio as a traditional midwife, Ibaye. My herbal studies comes from Nigeria under the tutelage of Chief Adesina Orisa and Chief Bankole Popola. I also have training with Miss Patricia Christie Howe out of Batona Lagos in America. I am also a student of the School of Functional Medicine as a practitioner, and I am currently finishing my doctorate in natural medicine. So, what does womb care mean to you? Before we get started, let's just take a minute, slow down, take a deep breath. Place your hand over your heart and repeat after me. Today, we reclaim, remember, and restore sacred womb knowledge. So let's begin. The global history of vaginal steaming, also called Yoni steaming. First, you must know that it is an ancestral practice found across many cultures across the world. From Ghana to Senegal, in your Mayan traditions, even in your Caribbean and Korean traditions. As of now, the oldest documented source of cultures practicing Yoni steaming comes out of Egypt from the Kahun Gynecological Papyrus dated 1825 BC. Now, I need you to understand that the term Yoni steaming, vaginal steaming, pelvic steaming is relatively a new term. So for all of my researchers in the audience, when you go back to look up these things, it's actually going to be called vaginal fumigation. That was what it was called. There is some archaeological evidence, that suggests that it was mainly done by noblemen after birth to help with the healing of the perineum, as well as to release some of the retained placenta matter, and even to help with tearing and swelling after birth. As an African practice in Ghana, Nigeria, Mozambique, Ethiopia, South Africa, again, it was part of a postpartum ritual, as part of a cleansing ritual, as also a rite of passage for young girls. There you go. Now, so the womb is the seat of power and memory. So one thing you need to know is that when your mother was pregnant with you, somewhere around the 4-month time, as a female child or a female fetus, you started to develop all the eggs that you will carry for your entire life. So that means at one point in your development, you, your mother, and your grandmother existed in the same body at the same time. Now, a lot of times we hear things about generational curses, generational blessings. That is the physicality of how it comes. Because again, like I said, at one point, you, your mother, and your grandmother all existed in the same body at the same time. And what that looks like is if there was a traumatic event that happened to your mother, or technically your grandmother, while she was pregnant, that fear, that anger, that emotion imprinted onto the egg, onto the fetus. So now it carries on. So let's say, for whatever reason, you are extremely nervous about loud noises. It could be that when your mom, or when when your mom was pregnant with you, there was a traumatic event that happened. So that was a very loud, could have been a car accident, could have been gunshots, could have been some kind of loud noise that scared her so much that it imprinted into the baby and onto the eggs itself, okay? Now, the other thing is that you need to know is that the womb holds our entire story here on this planet. Literally everything from beginning to end. Every argument we've ever had, every joy we've ever had, every love, every loss, everything is imprinted right here in our womb. And what happens is that when you have extreme emotions over time and you don't resolve them, it ends up turning into a pathology later on in life. And those pathologies could look anything like endometriosis, PCOS, cysts, irregular periods, unresolved fertility, unresolved infections, okay? So when we have these multi-layers, because you know, ladies, we are never quite clear-cut. There's always a little extra something to us. So because of that, the way we heal ourselves is going to be multi-level and multi-dimensional, okay? Now, one of the things that we want to consider from a herbal's perspective is releasing the congestion that is holding tight within our womb. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit more about the heart and womb connection, okay? So in traditional Chinese medicine, the spirit or your shin is stored in the heart. And there, if you were to go online and look at a cross-section of a heart, it actually has the same structure as the womb, okay? And the heart holds the shin or holds the spirit, and the womb holds the gene or your essence, okay? So if you experience something like anxiety or heartbreak or any type of strong emotion here, she feels it here, okay? Now, within the TCM concept, there is something called fire element balance for the womb pathology. So again, like I said, when the heart becomes, when the heart fire becomes excessive, or there's like extreme emotions, the flow, the uterine flow can become very erratic. Sleep cycles, rhythms can be disturbed, as well as the manifestations of fibroids, amenorrhea, which is lack of a period, painful periods, or just infertility altogether. So when we look at this diagram here, and we're looking at the different organs of the body, each organ of the body plays a part to a different body organ, which then translates to the womb and how she shows up every month for us. So we talked about the heart already. So with us, the heart, that's our joy center. When we are out of balance with that particular joy, we have lack of enthusiasm, lack of vitality. We could have some depression, maybe some insomnia, some confusion. Okay, and what that looks like on a physical level is irregular heartbeat, dizziness, spontaneous sweating, vivid dreaming, things of that nature. Okay, when we come to the spleen, when it's the emotion that carries with it is worry and overthinking. So all my sisters, all my beautiful queens out there, if you're a person who has trouble stopping their mind, like they have like racing thoughts, you have an issue or an imbalance within your spleen. And with that, you're gonna have some poor digestion, okay? You're gonna have some nutrient absorption issues. And then you're gonna also have imbalances of tiredness, maybe some excess mucus discharge, may have some pale lips, weak muscles, maybe having some diarrhea. What that looks like into the womb is you have what's called uterine fatigue, which means your womb just gives out, it gets tired. She's tired of holding all the worry and all the distress, so she lets go. So now we have a situation where we possibly have 2 menses a month, so to speak, or even we have a very short menses, or menstrual cycle rather, where we're having a cycle that is anywhere from 17 to 21 days versus the standard 28 to 30 days, okay? And there's also gonna be some clots within this particular menses. The kidney, that's fear. Again, trauma, very big thing, paranoia, lack of willpower. That holds seat in the kidneys, and now you have trouble holding your urine. You have trouble, you have like lower back pain, you have fatigue, potentially hair loss, night sweats, things of that nature, hot flashes, absent-mindedness, right? How that translates over into the womb, we now have irregular menses, we have low libido, could even have scant, which means volume-wise, very, very light menses. Then we have the lungs, okay? That's anger, that's grief, all right? When it's out of balance, sadness, you could be detached from your womb or just detached from, people and situations altogether. You may have eczema, psoriasis. You could even potentially have shortness of breath or just trouble getting like a deep, full, deep breath, okay? And the way that shows up, and the way that shows up in the womb is a loss of menses. That's a menses that it skips. It could even be so painful that it doesn't, like when it shows up in trickles, like little spots, and then it'll flow, and then it'll stop, and then it'll trickle, and it does that little dance for a couple of days before the full letdown happens, okay? So the reason why I wanted to go over all that, because I want you to know that having these imbalances, the unfortunate part is that allopathic or Western medicine, regular medicine, will have you think that that's normal. It's not normal, okay? It's common, but it's not normal. And I want you to understand that this is the root. This is where it starts from, okay? Because if we know where it starts from, we know how to pull it out, pull it out and start all new with whole new fertile soil, like as I like to say, okay? So why should we steam? Physical, spiritual functions of it. What does the steam actually do? So the way the steaming works, and I'm going to demonstrate how to actually do a steam setup at the end. So just stay around, don't run nowhere, okay? So the way the steam works is that when you sit over the steam, you have, first of all, nice, gentle steam. For the most part, all of us has been in a hot tub or a jacuzzi or even a nice hot shower where we just relaxed, okay? So when we have that relaxation, you have the steam goes up and it accesses the vulva and the anus all at the same time, and it increases circulation. So remember, cold constricts, heat opens, okay? And so we open the blood vessels. When you open the blood vessels, you have more circulation to that area, and you're now getting more lubrication to that area. And when you have different pathologies or different situations within the womb, sometimes it can cause you to feel disconnected to your womb, could even hate your womb. I remember I was speaking to a young lady once, and she told me that her womb was trying to kill her every month, right? I didn't know what to tell her about that. I had never heard that one before, but that's how extreme it could get. And so when you're steaming, what it does is that it forces that circulation back into that area. And if you're able to just relax into it and breathe, you'll actually start to feel your womb again. You'll feel her. And then over time, with consistent care to her, you'll start to hear what she has to tell you. Right? Because we do more than just create babies. You know, we have ideas that could change the world being held captive in our womb because we have so much congestion there and we can't see straight, hear straight, or feel straight, okay? And so the steam helps to remove any blocked energy that is there, and it invites ceremony and intention into that space. All right, so let's go over some symptoms that I'm sure every one of us have felt at one point in time, maybe all together. Okay, but definitely one or two. So we have our painful periods. That's going to be blood circulation and energy stagnation. So the word on the screen is called qi. That's out of the Chinese doctrine, and that's what it means. It means energy. All right, and so that translates over to the liver. We have stagnation in our liver. Irregular cycles. So irregular cycles could be anything from cycles that are way, way, way long, like they could be 40 days, 60 days, but then the next one they're 20 days, and the next one they're 30 days, and the next one they're 5 days. They're just all over the place. That's emotional stress. That's trauma. And that could be held unresolved trauma, or when it's emotional stress, it could be the life cycle changes, you know, going from reproductive age to the more mature and elder ages. And that's direct heart and uterus disconnection. Heavy bleeding. So understand, when we talk about heavy bleeding, we're talking about having to wear 2 pads and a tampon at the same time. We're talking about having to wear maybe 3 pairs of shorts underneath your clothes. We're talking about having to put a towel down on the bed because you overflow. That's what we're talking about when we say it's too much blood or is really, really heavy bleeding. Now, that's heat in the blood, and that could be a sign of fibroids, but we'll talk about fibroids a little later, but it could be a sign of fibroids or a deficiency within the spleen, okay? So understanding the imbalances through the symptoms, a cold womb, that is stress. That's, again, trauma. The kidney dysfunction and a blood deficiency. And then yeast infections, poor gut flora, too much sugar, too much stress. That's going to be a damp heat in the lower areas, okay? And also, too, let me just take a minute to just give a little extra light to infections. So understand something. There are 2 very distinct things in this world. There is something called sexually transmitted diseases or infections, and then there's something called sexually transmitted demons, okay? And the sexually transmitted demons is when you invite somebody into your space, your womb space, that doesn't belong there, okay? I'm pretty sure all of us have had a relationship at some point where we were in a relationship, we thought everything was going good, And then the whole relationship turned left and became very, very, very sour. Okay. But we continued on that relationship knowing that we've been hurt, either physically or mentally or spiritually. And now we've let this person continually back into our body, and they don't belong there. They don't have the right. They don't deserve to be there. Okay, so now as a female being what they call the universal receiver, and men being the universal giver, now that particular brother has literally given you his bad energy. Okay, and now you're sitting with it, literally sitting with it in your womb. Okay, and sometimes that can be the reason why a person has chronic yeast infections or bacterial vaginosis or trichomonas or any other infections out there. Another thing that could cause yeast infections, other than the foods and the clothes that we wear, is literally the pH of your partner. Let me explain. So when a person is on a plant-based diet, and they're doing all the things to kind of stay healthy and whatnot, the pH of their fluids in their body are alkaline. Okay, if you have somebody that's constantly eating meat, they're eating crap food, and when I say crap food, I'm talking about they're going to fast food places, they're drinking a whole bunch of alcohol, they may be doing recreational drugs. Now their pH is becoming acidic. So when they have an acidicness to their blood and to their body fluids, and it meets with your alkaline, now we have a problem, okay? Because that causes infections. In the world of midwifery and birth, if a mom is pregnant, there's a particular situation called amniochromocytosis, and that's where the alkalinity of the amniotic fluid and the acidity of the vaginal canal fluid meets. And when it meets, it is a huge infection. It's usually an emergency situation. Antibiotics have to be given and all the things. The same thing happens to us if we're dealing with somebody who is toxic or is having is carrying a toxic body. Okay, so just some things to think about if there's ever a situation where you're having chronic infections and you don't know where it's coming from. Okay. All right, now let's look at the color of the blood. The color of the blood is always our biggest indication. So what I like to do is for the normal blood, or what we consider normal, I like to liken it to the color of a Coca-Cola can. Okay, our blood is supposed to be that color from beginning of our menses to the end of the menses. Okay, now when we start to shift into the darker colors, again, the darker colors is a sign of stagnation, because with this you're going to probably have some clots. This is old residue. Okay, so we're looking at poor circulation, stagnation. You could potentially have blood clots, cramps, headaches, or just be, emotionally irritated. And then all that combined together means, again, you're holding stuff here in your womb space. Okay, now when we move further up the color line, we get into the uterine fatigue, which is you're tired, your blood vessels and your cervix stays closed, and it's overall fatigue. Usually the people who have to work through uterine fatigue, these are the sisters who are workaholics. These are the ones who have very poor self-care. You try to get them to go to the spa or take a vacation, like, wait, but I have one more project at work, or I got to do this real quick, or I got to do this real quick. Next thing you know, it's 10, 11 o'clock at night before they actually sit down and take care of themselves. And them taking care of themselves is literally just taking a hot bath and going to bed, or maybe staying up a couple of extra hours watching their favorite movie on TV. Okay? And what happens is because of the uterine fatigue, the womb gets tired, like I was saying earlier. She gets tired of holding all this weight from day to day to day, so she just lets go. Okay, and again, these are the menstrual cycles that are really short. They're less than 27 days. And before I forget, let me go back to old residue, the darker blood. One of the reasons why having a lot of old residue and stagnation in the womb is because it can affect your ability for fertility. And this is how. So when you have that old residue, those clots, that sticky blood, all that sits on the womb, the lining of your womb, okay? So when it's time to conceive, the sperm goes to the egg, fertilizes the egg, and then the egg is trying to attach to the uterine wall. But it can't attach to it because it's a fake wall, because that's old blood. It's not actual tissue. So when it comes time for a menses, literally the body is throwing the baby out with the water, with the bath water, okay? Because all that old residue is sitting right there and is attached to that. Now, when we have uterine fatigue, when I say that the body gets tired of carrying in pregnancy, what that means is as the baby grows, okay, the body is no longer able to hold the baby. So these are going to be your early term losses. So these are going to be losses that happen maybe in like the beginning of the second trimester, anywhere up to the end of the second to beginning of the first trimester. The body just gets tired and releases everybody, okay? And then we have blood deficiency, which is going to be your lighter color blood. Your folks who have sickle cell anemia or just your regular metabolic anemia, their blood is going to be a pinkish color. All right, lack of nutrients. These are usually absent or very, very scant menses, okay? Dampness. Dampness is going to have a lot of cervical mucus. These are the people who may have a lot of discharge before a menses or during a menses. They also could potentially have fibroids at this point. And again, these are also people who suffer from poor circulation as well. And then we have excessive heat. That's our hot flashes, having one right now. So the hot flashes, night sweats, flooding, all of these things, the blood can actually be a neon color to even purple, okay? And these are usually people who are really, really angry all the time, all right? We also have dryness. Dryness could look like blood dry chips, flaky blood. The actual vaginal canal itself could be dry. There's a lot of fear attached to this particular one, this particular type of menses. And the problem with dryness is that when the vaginal canal is dry, it actually offers up the ability to have microlesions within the actual tissue itself, therefore opening the door for opportunistic infections to occur, okay? And then the last one is just the weak digestion, spleen qi deficiency like we were talking about before. This is poor food combination. The number one worst food combination is meat and potatoes. That is the absolute worst combination out there, but that's usually what a lot of people do. They'll put some kind of animal protein with a very, very heavy starch. The body cannot digest that appropriately. And it takes a lot longer than you think, almost anywhere from 28 to 30 days, sometimes longer, to get through that one piece of chicken or beef or fish you had last week, okay? And with all of that, so when you're looking at your blood, and I highly recommend you look at your blood, these are the things that got you there, okay? These are the reasons why. So when you're doing your own assessment, take note, okay? Now, when you also are going through these imbalances, you're gonna have other symptoms. You may have bloating. You may have the cramps. You may have headaches, nausea, vomiting, migraines to the point where you gotta turn lights off and put cold, like ice on your neck. You could have breast tenderness. You could have nipple leakage. You can have extreme high libido or very, very low libido. You could have fatigue. You could have melancholy. You could have, you could also be hyperactive at the same time. You may have a craving for cold, like physically cold foods. Like this may be the one time during the entire month you let yourself have ice cream or eat ice, when on a normal day you may not eat those things. right? And then you may also find yourself being constipated. And so please understand, by definition, in the medical world, constipation is having a bowel movement once every 3 days. Again, that is so far from the truth, it is not even funny. You literally need to be having a bowel movement after you eat. So if you eat 3 times a day, you should be having a bowel movement 3 times a day, okay? Anything outside of that is considered constipation. Diarrhea, oddly enough, is a form of constipation because you have a solidified fecal particle within your colon, and the water is just pushing around that particular piece of fecal matter. So both extremes are not necessarily the best. However, because there's an imbalance in the womb, this may come on during those times, okay? So these are things to think about. These are how these show up. And a lot of times when I'm speaking to people, they don't put 2 and 2 together because they think about only the bloating and think about the bloating, and they think about the tiredness, and they may think about, you know, the breast enlargement or tenderness, excuse me. And another good one too is vivid dreams. Sometimes during or right before the menses, people start having very vivid dreams. And for those who don't know what a vivid dream is, vivid dreams are dreams that are so in color and they're so real that when you wake up from it, you can still feel, sense, taste where you were. So if you had a dream where you were walking on the beach, right? When you wake up from that dream, you can still feel the sand between your toes. You can still smell the ocean. You can still hear the waves. And it takes you a minute to kind of be like, okay, where am I? How did I get here? Where did I go? Okay. These are things that are very much associated with prior to having a menses letdown. Not normal, but common, okay? And what we have to do, not only as practitioners, but but as just people living this, we have to take accountability and sit down and look at what we're doing with our lives and our body. Now, my favorite part, we're talking about some plants now. I love this part. All right, so when we're doing steaming, we want to look for plants that have very particular actions, okay? And what an herbal action is what makes the plant do what it does, right? It's the job, the function that it does, okay? So you want to look for plants that are astringents, all right? Astringents are plants that tighten tissue, they reduce excess bleeding, they literally tighten the area, okay? You want examples of that would be yarrow, rose, raspberry leaf. Circulatory stimulants. Those are herbs that increase the blood flow. They get everything moving. That's going to be your gingers, your cinnamons, your cloves. Now remember, if there's a circulation issue, not only do you want to tackle it from the bottom, but you want to tackle it from the top, meaning you want to make sure you're drinking teas, hot teas, okay, that stimulate the circulation and get the blood moving, okay? Now we also have antimicrobials. Again, microbial, antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral, all the little buggies out there, the antibiotics of the plant kingdom, right? We want to clear the infection and maintain a good floral balance within our womb space. Thyme, oregano, calendula. And let me pause for a second. Have y'all noticed something here? A lot of these herbs are the same herbs that are in your spice cabinet. Keep that in mind. And then we're looking at nourishment or tonics. And these are herbs that are going to restore the depleted tissue. So we're looking at mugwort, motherwort, lavender, things of this nature, okay? There's another category of herbs called adaptogenics. And what those are herbs that actually adapt to what's going on in the body. So if you're having a situation where you have like too much estrogen and not enough progesterone, you will take those herbs and it's going to balance it back out, bring it back to even, okay? Because the body will do everything in its power to stay balanced. That's what it's supposed to do, okay? And when you give your body extra fuel, you know, the good stuff, it has no choice but to balance itself out and make you complete and happy all over again. There we go. Now, we got a couple of contraindications and cautions when it comes to yoni steaming, okay? Now, the very first one is if you are currently pregnant, don't steam, but, okay? Let me explain. So prior to 39 weeks of pregnancy, you want to make sure nothing comes in contact with the womb space that could destabilize that pregnancy. That's why in pregnancy, laxatives are considered a big no, because it will destabilize the pregnancy because of the spasming effect it has on the colon. And with the colon sitting here and the womb sitting here, that spasm effect can cause a person to have premature contractions, okay? Now, yoni steaming does not cause contractions, but what it does is that it thins out the cervix or makes the cervix soft. That way, when there is a contraction, the contraction takes and allows dilation to happen. That's why before 39 weeks, you do not want to have, or you don't want to be doing yoni steaming. Now, after 39 weeks, because 39 weeks is considered full term, the baby's brain is fully developed, the lungs are fully developed, all the internal organs are fully developed. Now, if you want to start yoni steaming, you can. Just make sure you tell your midwife or your provider, your doula, your health coach, whoever's working with you in the pregnancy, that you're doing it so that they can monitor, okay? But other than that, don't steam when you're pregnant, okay? Now, the other thing is actively bleeding. Let me explain. All right, so outside of pregnancy, when we are having a menses, the uterine artery is what is open. That is what's causing the blood. The uterine artery is one of the bigger vessels, connects directly to the heart. So when you have all the steam and the steam is rising up, if you steam when you're on your menses, again, steam opens up and causes circulation. So that means you're going to actually release more blood than you needed to. And you could actually put yourself into a situation called hypovolemic or hypovolemia, which is decrease in blood volume, okay? Now, when a person is pregnant, they've given birth, the uterine artery closes anywhere from like 2 to 6 hours after birth, give or take. So that's why after birth, the blood changes from colors. It'll be bright red, then it'll get a little bit dark, then pink, then it goes away, okay? Once those changes start happening, the uterine artery has closed, and so the blood that's coming down is actually just blood that's sitting around in the vaginal canal or in the womb space, the uterus, whatever name you want to give to it. So when you steam at that point, what you're doing is you're helping the body get rid of any residual fluids that are trapped in the womb space. You're helping get rid of any amniotic fluid, any retained placenta. If there was a tear, it helps to heal that area. If you had a hemorrhoid because of birth, it helps heal that as well. So technically, no, don't steam when you're actively bleeding. However, if you are in postpartum, it works a little differently. However, I remind you, please make sure you let your midwife or your provider know so that if something, awry happens, they can help you, okay? So a couple other ones real quick. If you have a medical device, like a IUD, okay? If you have an IUD implanted, there are two types. There's one that is metal and there's one that is plastic. The one that is metal, it is contraindicated to steam because the heat will actually heat up the copper wire that is there. And we are not trying to burn nothing, okay? If you have a plastic IUD in, I have to let you know that if you're steaming consistently, you actually will run the risk of dislodging the IUD. So be very mindful, and again, let your medical providers or your support people let them know that you're doing this, okay? Another thing is that if you have a mesh implant, so the mesh implants were used to help a person when they had uterine prolapse, which means the womb fell or the ligaments that connect the womb became so laxed, that they didn't come back up. So now the womb has dropped. So there's a procedure where they actually go in and they sew like a metal cage or mesh piece into the pelvic floor and connects into the muscles, the uterine muscles. And that particular mesh, if you have that, it's extremely contraindicated because, again, the heat will cause the metal to heat up and now you're burning your insides. We don't want that. Now, oops. All right. So let's talk about some fun stuff. Customizing a steam blend. All right. The main thing is, first of all, know your plants, know your herbs, okay? At best, if nothing else, you can always steam with roses. That's good for everybody. It's very gentle. If you have a teenager, she can steam with the flowers. It's super gentle. It's always easy, okay? So for postpartum care, we're looking at plants like shepherd's purse for bleeding, calendula for moistening and antibacterial, antimicrobial effects. We're looking at comfrey because it helps heal the tissue. For fertility support, we're looking at red clover because it's a uterine tonic. We're looking at shatavari because it helps with the balancing of the hormones. And we're looking at mugwort because, again, it is a antimicrobial, bacterial, has antibacterial properties. And then we have fibroids and cysts. So again, these are particular things that will pathologies in the womb. So, and these will actually rearrange your hormones. So you're looking at ginger, dong quai, yarrow. You want to tighten, you want to help them release and get them out of your body. Trauma releases, and this is a big one. Rose, chamomile, mugwort, motherwort. So let me explain something about trauma release. Trauma release can be very cathartic and very powerful all at the same time. But be very careful with it because, like I said earlier, the womb space holds all of our information, all our little secrets. So when you start to work on decongesting the womb space and healing yourself, things can come out that you did not have any recollection of. It could be an argument you had with a friend back in elementary school or primary school. It could be an argument or a situation that happened at your job. It could be a situation that happened, you know, years and years and years ago, and you thought you had solved it. You thought you had healed it. Oh, no, 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 no. It's still there. All you did was compartmentalize it and put it on the shelf, and you threw it to the back and said, I was going to deal with it later, and you didn't get back to it. Now it's holding space. So when you start to work on healing yourself, and sometimes they call it shadow work, when you start working on that shadow work, all this stuff comes forward. And please know that you don't have any obligation to do anything about it. Just acknowledge the fact that you held on to it way longer than you needed to, and forgive yourself and keep it moving, okay? And then also, I want to say a very special note about motherwort and lavender from a spiritual sense. For people who are very spiritually sensitive, meaning they pick up energies around them, you know, they may be psychics or oracles or, you know, diviners or seers, you know, whatever. Lavender and motherwort could kind of enhance your abilities. So be very mindful, okay? Especially with motherwort, because motherwort works on wounds that were created by your mother. Okay, so if you're in a bad place with your mother, your biological mother, and you start using this particular herb, don't be surprised that the energy released from it causes you to want to go back and have conversations with your mother, or it may want you to go back and heal that, or next thing you know, she's calling you out of nowhere for whatever reason. Okay. So just, I want to put that out there. And like I said, with lavender, it increases empathic abilities. And sometimes that could be overwhelming for some people. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Okay. All right. Now we're going to create a ritual space For my people who have kids, you have the husband, you have the job, you have the after school activities, you have your social calendar. This is the perfect time for you to put the sign on the door that says, I'll be back in an hour. Okay. So what you'll do is you will clean the space, like find a space in your house where you could have 100% to yourself, and you're going to cleanse that space. And when I say cleanse that space, you're going to get out your sage, you're going to get out your Palo Santo, your dragon's blood, and you're literally going to, incense and clean the space spiritually. Okay, you can pray in that particular area so that like the energy in that area is of a healing and light and positive energy. You're going to set your intention, right? Why are you doing this thing? Why are you going into this space? Do you have a situation in your womb that you need to release? Has the doctor just told you that you need surgery? What's the conversation that you're going to have with your body while you're doing this? Okay. You're going to use affirmations. You can journal. You can use your sound healing, your binary beats. Again, this is your space. This is what you need to heal, to slow down, to process, okay? The womb is always listening. So have the conversation with her, okay? And then put the sign on the door that says, I'll be back in 1 hour, okay? Now, this is how you're going to incorporate this particular modality into your everyday life, okay? For just regular maintenance, typically you'll see it as saying 1 to twice a month. I highly recommend you do it weekly, okay? And mainly because in a week-to-week situation, anything can happen. You could have like a huge presentation at your job and it goes really, really well. So now you want to celebrate and you want to treat yourself to a self-care day. You could add this to your self-care program or your self-care regimen, Or let's say it's the opposite. You had a really horrible day at work. Everybody was getting on your nerves. Someone stole your project. No one's giving you the love and light that you deserve. So now you still need to release and just get it off of you, okay? It's perfect. Now, also, too, just real quick, remember I told you guys that steaming works with the libido. So if you have low libido, when you start steaming consistently, your libido will pick up. And here's a fun fact. Your man will like it too, okay? And if he likes it, you can tell him that you want your own steam setup for Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Christmas, birthday, whatever, all right? Because once he realizes that you desire him just as much as he desires you, everybody wins, okay? Now, if you're steaming for a pathology, like let's say you have cysts or you have PCOS or fibroids or endometriosis, you're going to steam a lot longer, okay? And there's very specific protocols that go along with using this modality as a healing technique for things like that. You may have to combine herbal infusions like your drinking teas. You may have to combine womb massage, castor oil packs, and definitely your emotional and spiritual support. Make sure you track your symptoms, track your cycles, and your emotional shifts, And teach your daughters, your young people how to do this, because it's something that if they learn good womb hygiene early, they will not be subjected to the crazy stuff that happens later on in life, like being in their 20s and not being able to get pregnant, or coming up with finding out they have a fibroid that's as big as a grapefruit. Because please understand, pathologies within the womb do not manifest overnight. They've been sitting there working and ticking for years, okay? So as I come to an end, I want everybody to just know body sovereignty, okay? We need to own and be accountable for our own bodies. We are the first doctor before we go to the hospital and to the clinic. We are the first doctor. We are the ones that are going to notice when things aren't quite right, even if we never say anything out loud, okay? So I invite everybody to put their hands on their wounds. Brothers, put it on your stuff, okay? And repeat after me. I choose this body to be my home. I choose to honor the wisdom of her bones, listen to her as my beloved teacher. I choose to trust even when this human experience has me feeling like I cannot go further. The proof is that I am here, in discomfort and in ecstasy, pain and pleasure, right beside each other every single day. I choose this body to carry my stories and to house my transformation. I choose this body to teach me her secrets. Ashe. Now, like I said earlier, I'm going to demonstrate for you how to actually do a Yoni steam. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do now. Do I just pull it out? Okay. All right. So in order to do a Yoni steam, you need two things for the most part. There is something called a mild steam, and there's something that's called an advanced steam. A mild steam is literally a steam where you don't have a heating device underneath it. You literally just boil the water and then you squat over the steam and you let the steam rise and do what it do, okay? So that steam can last anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. When you do an advanced steam, that's when you have a heating source underneath the water, and that steam can last anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, okay? So you can either use a steam seat or you could use this squat. So I'm gonna show mine. This, oddly enough, believe it or not, this is an antique chamber pot, okay? This is what they used back in the day, okay? But you'll see online, they have different type of seats, you know, that have different carvings and stuff on it. You'll see some people that use chairs, literally whatever works, okay? If you are a person that's into yoga, there is a certain yoga position where you can get, and when you're in this position, you're down like this. If you can hold this position for a couple of minutes, go for it. My knees don't let me do it, so I got to sit in the seat, okay? So I always do a advanced setup. So I have my burner, and I just put it underneath here. And I have my pot. Now, I recommend stainless steel. You will see some people that use a clay pot. They may use porcelain. They will even use glass. I've seen all three of them break. So it just depends on what you have available. Like I said, I always recommend stainless steel. So then you're gonna put the stainless steel pot on your burner. Now, you can use a burner, like a hot plate, or you can use a 4-quart crock pot, okay, like the little small crock pots. The only difference is that if you use a crock pot, you have to turn, when you doing your setup, you got to turn it on first, turn it on high, and then you go get your herbs ready. So you have your steam set up, okay, and so on the stove or the kettle, you got your hot water going. You're going to put your herbs into that water, and then you're going to bring it and put it here into your bowl, okay? And then we're going to sit down. The wider you can sit, the better, okay? Because it actually allows for better spinal alignment as well as the position of your wound space over the opening, okay? Now, there's always been a lot of questions about how hot it should be. The heat should literally be comfortable, okay? If you are doing the steam and you're doing all of this kind of movement, it's way too hot. Get up, allow it to cool a little bit, okay? The type of hot plate that I use, it has a dial on it, so you can adjust the heat to however feels comfortable for you, okay? So once you're sitting down, you take your fabric, and you put it over your lap, or if you want, you know, Again, I'm fully clothed because we're here doing this presentation. But if you're at home doing it, you could actually be completely nude. If you're completely nude, you just wrap your fabric around you. That way you have a full encapsulation of the steam. Otherwise, just have it over your lap and just breathe. That's all you do. During this time, like I said, this is where it's your time. You can breathe, you can journal, you can meditate, you can do your affirmations, whatever it is, you can do your prayers. This is your sacred time, your sacred space, so make use of it. And I promise you, you will not regret it, okay? Pay attention to your symptoms and your how you feel afterwards and before. One of the things that a lot of people talk about feeling afterwards is feeling very sleepy. So you may want to kind of time this so that you're going to bed. Or even, you could even, if you have a flexibility within your schedule, try it in the morning, try it in the middle of the day, try it in the afternoon, see which works for you, okay? Other people have talked about when they, like afterwards, they have a very clean feeling urinary response, meaning when they go to the restroom afterwards, it feels vibrant, it feels clean, like it's hard to explain, but when you do it, you understand what I'm talking about, okay? And then they are able to finally get a really good, deep sleep afterwards. And you'd be surprised how many of us don't actually sleep well at night for all, kinds of different reasons. But yeah, so you just sit here and you just relax. Thank you for joining me tonight. Again, my name is Zaire. I'm here with New Earth Health Foods Ghana. Thank you for this presentation. If you want to get in contact with me or you have any more questions about how to do yoni steaming or anything plant-based, womb-based, you can contact me on all social media platforms as Mystic Momma, MYSTICMOMMA01. Or if you want to email me, mysticmama01@gmail.com. Thank you again.